System 1 loaded.
Hi guys! Welcome back to my channel. For this video, we are going to talk about Cisco Basics. First thing I'm gonna teach you here in Cisco is the most basic, which is PC to PC. So for the first step, just go to End Devices, then choose this PC. Place it here, and do it again for another PC. The next step is to click the first PC, go to Desktop, and go to IP configuration to place your IP address. So for this video, I'm gonna use 10.10.10.1. For the next step, this is just an option, but I usually use this to know easily the PC. Just rename the PC with your IP address 10.10.10.1. Click again to the second PC. Click the PC, go to Desktop, go to IP configuration, then IP address. Since we use 10.10.10.1, we are now gonna use here is 1.10.10.2 since it is not valid to use the same IP address. But you can choose naman any other IP address that you want. Then rename it again 10. So we have now two PC with IP addresses. So in connecting the two PC, just go here at connections. Then you can see here so many types of connections. As you can see, there are two connections that is black na magkatabi. Remember that using copper straight through, we only use this if the two devices is different. And we use copper crossover if the two devices is the same. So in this case, since this is the same PC, we're gonna use copper crossover. So click it, click the first PC, pass Ethernet, then the second PC. As you can see, there are two circles that is color green. That means that the two PC are now connected. So if we want to know that the two PC are really connected, just go here at the mail ping, click, then click to the first PC, then second PC. After that, just go here. Look at these two different things. This is the real time, then this is the simulation. Just click this auto capture click. And we can see the message is delivering to PC number 2. And then going back to PC number 1. In that case, that means that the two PC are really now connected. So that's all for PC to PC. The second thing I'm gonna teach you is the PCs with one hub. First things first, go to Hubs, then choose the first generic, then place it here. As you can see, there are 6 Ethernet space for cables, so we are able to use 6 PCs. Next thing is go to End Devices and choose PC, then place it here. Do it for 6 times. Place 6 PC. So the next thing is to add an IP address to the PCs. Go desktop, IP configuration. So for this thing, we are gonna use 192.10.10.1. Then we name the PC. Do it again to another PC. Since we are not able to use the same IP address, we are now gonna use 192.10.10.3. Rename. Then do it again to the rest PCs. Since we have now a PCs that has an IP address, we can now connect it to the hub. I'll just rename the hub. So as I said earlier, that for the two devices that is different, we will use the copper straight through. Pass Ethernet. As you can see, there are 6 ports. Do it again to the rest PCs. As you can see, there are 12 circles that is colored green. That means that all 6 PCs are now connected to the hub. So for us to be sure, do again the email thing. Click the email. Let's do it like that. Just do it to all. As you can see that the message is delivered to the all PCs, but as you can see that the other PCs is X. So that means that this is the only PC that will be delivered by the message. Do it again. So we are now able to prove that our PCs are connected to each other using the hub. So that's it for PCs with one hub. The thing I'm gonna teach you is the PCs with one switch. First things first, go to switches, then choose the generic, the first one, then place it here. As you can see, there are only 4 ports in this switch, so that means that we can only use 4 PCs. But first, rename this PC. this switch rather. So the next thing is go to End Devices, then choose PC. Do it for 4 times. So the next thing is add an IP address to all PCs. For this thing, I'm gonna use 200.1.1.1. Rename the PC. For the next PC, we're gonna use 200.1.1.2. Rename. Do it again. Since we have now 4 PCs that has an IP address, we can now connect it to the switch. Since PC and switch are different things, we're gonna use copper straight through. Choose this fast Ethernet 0, 1. Then do it again. As you can see, there are only 4 circles that are green, and there are another 4 circles that is color orange. That means that our PC are still connecting to the switches. As you can see, the first PC is now green, also the second, and for the rest PC. And do it again for the rest PC. So now, as you can see, they are all connected. So if you want to know that the PCs are connected to switches, just do this thing again. But we're gonna use only the 4th PC and the 4th PC. Go to simulation. As you can see, that the message is delivered to the 4th PC and going back to the 4th PC. We are now able to know that the PCs are connected to each other using the switch. That's all for PCs with one switch. The last thing I'm gonna teach you is a little bit hard, so you better watch and listen carefully, because this is PCs with 2 switches. So first thing we're gonna do is go to switches, then choose 2960. Since we need 2 switches, we add another one. Now we have 2 switches. We're just rename it first. This is just an option. So, okay, not too big. As you can see, there are so many ports in each switch. 24 ports in total. Since there are so many ports in each switch, we're only gonna use 4 PCs in each switch. So go to End Devices, choose the first generic, which is the PC, then add 4 to the first switch. Then do it again to another switch. So the next thing we're gonna do is to add an IP address to each PCs. We're gonna start first to the switch 1. For this switch and PC, I'm gonna use 10.10.10.1. Rename, then do it again. So we're now going to the second switch with 4 pieces. So for this switch with pieces, we're gonna use an IP address that is 192.10.10.1. Rename, then do it again to another piece. So we have now pieces that has an IP address. So the next thing we're gonna do is to connect the pieces in the switches. Go to connections. Since we have different device, which is the switch and PC, we're gonna use the copper straight through. As you can see, there are a lot of ports available in switch. But we're gonna use the first thing or the first port. Do it again to another pieces. And again. And again. So we have now switches that is connecting to 4 pieces. Now let's go here to switch 2. We'll just do the same that we did in switch 1. Connect the PC1 to the switch, PC2 to the switch, again, and again. As you can see, the pieces are now connecting to the switch. So now, the question here is how we are going to connect the all pieces using the 2 switches. How we're going to connect the switch 1 to switch 2. In that case, we are going to do is go to routers. Then choose the 2911 here. As we connect the PC to switch, we'll do the same in connecting switch to router. We're gonna use the copper straight through. As you can see that there are 2 different ports in the switch 1. That means that it can be used to the router. So we're gonna use the first port. Connect. Then choose this. Then do it again to the switch 2. As you can see, there are 4 circles, 2 in each switch and router that is color red. That means that the switches aren't connected, are still not connected to the router. So, in order to connect the switch to router, we're just gonna add an IP address. Since we use Gigabit Ethernet 00 for switch, it will be gonna use to connect the switch 1. I'm going to use an IP address that is 10.10.10.7. We'll do it again for the switch 2 since we use Gigabit Ethernet 0.1. We're going to use 192.1.0.10.7. As you can see that it's still red. The circles are still red. What we're just going to do is to fast forward time, as you can see here. As you can see, the router and switch aren't still connected to each other because we missed something that is very important. So go to router, then go to the Gigabit Ethernet 00 which were connected to the switch 1. Then as you can see here, there is port status that is currently off. We're just going to do is to turn it on by checking it. As you can see now, the router is connecting to the switch 1. We'll do it again for the switch 2. Since we use Gigabit Ethernet 01, we're going to open this to connect to the switch 2. As you can see that it is connecting for the things to be forwarded. We're just gonna use this fast forward time. As you can see now, the switch 2 and the switch 1 are now connected to the router. That means that also the PCs in switch 1 and switch 2 and switch 1 are now also connected to each other. That's all for this vlog. Thank you and have a nice day.